Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back for another video. I am back, believe it or not. I had a rough weekend. And so, hey, nice to see some green on coin360.com. I'm not going to really count that as a huge win, but I was out of commission for a few days. I had a fever, and then I had this nasty stomach bug. I don't know what in the world was going on. But I'm back. I'm about 80%, still, trying to fight through this, but I'm back for the time being. We'll see about the future. But I've had a lot of time to think about things, just about a couple of things. Where are we going? I know that it's difficult. So I remember in my lengthening cycles video, I talked about this. I removed everything. I removed all the metrics, the bull market support band, the Fibonacci extensions, all that. I just wanted to look at the chart. I have this chart memorized. If I close my eyes right now, I could visualize this chart. And if you watch my lengthening cycles video on November 17th, I talked about how if we had a lengthening cycle, that I could see there being a period of time like July where we were in a bearish market, a bear moment, a bear time. And that ended up being about 3 months. And so here we are, December 4th. I wouldn't say actually that was officially when we got under the bull market support band. We wicked down to $42,000 and now we're sweeping those lows. December 4th was when we entered, again, bear market territory space, or bear market territory. Yeah, a bear market, and that's just simply how I define it. Under the bull market support band. Right now, bull market support band is around, $51,000, something like that. And so how long are we going to spend here? In my opinion, it seems like we are going to spend about the same amount of time as we did in June and July, which means we're maybe about 60% of the way through, unfortunately. So sorry if that's how it plays out. I am sorry, but time in the market with Bitcoin, at least time in the market is better than timing the market. And so there's something else that I've been paying attention to, and there is air in the lower 40s. And so what do I mean by that? So not at $42,000, maybe not at $43,000, but like this gap, there's this gap between 43 and 45 or 43 and 45.5, something like that. We spend very little time ever historically between $43 and $45,500 for Bitcoin. And when did that start? So remember, what day was this? You see that massive green candle there? There was a catalyst for that sent us much higher, got us to $58,000 within a span of a week or so, a couple weeks. And that massive green candle was Elon Musk tweeting that Tesla bought $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. And so we spent very little time. That was the very first time Bitcoin ever got up to 43,000 or 45,000, 46,000, something like that. And we spent such a little amount of time there that there wasn't any at all accumulation or distribution. It was just we blew through that territory. And so then in May, when everything crashed, we dumped just as quickly through that same territory. We have had barely any time to accumulate or distribute in this zone. We got rejected there in June, got rejected there. That first move up got rejected there. How high did we get there? Yeah, 42,000, 43,000, something like that, got rejected there. And then spent, again, very little time in that $43,000 to $45,500 range. And I could keep going, held that as support, and then dumped at the end of September really hard through there. And then October 1st, blew right past that. And so should it be a surprise that last week when we broke through to the bottom side, $45,500, that we dumped through it very quickly? So here's the thing I want to ask you. What happens this time around on the way up? Is it going to be air again? In my opinion, it's not only very likely, I'm not going to say it's a given. Let me just say it's very, very likely that once we break through to the upside, that gap between $43,000 and $45,500 is going to get filled pretty quickly. So the question is when? When's that going to happen? And does that signify the end of anything? Not necessarily, but I do think that that could inject some kind of confidence in the market. There are a few things that I'm paying attention to right now, and lots of things you got to keep your eyes on, lots of variables. CPI, this is the biggest thing. CPI tomorrow, 23 hours from the time that I'm speaking, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. So do you remember what happened the last 2 months when CPI was reported? CPI numbers were high, and Bitcoin in November shot up to $69,000 and then reversed immediately, dumped really hard from there. And then same thing in December. Bitcoin shot up to the 50s, about $50,000, and then reversed right away from there. And so now here's something I'm wondering though. All right, we have everything, every fear that came with high CPI numbers has been realized, at least in the sense that Jerome Powell in the Federal Reserve has decided to tighten things up pretty aggressively. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow with CPI. If high numbers are reported, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be this huge pump and then a dump. Because all of our worst fears, I think it's healthy for the economy to not be printing all this funny money and all that stuff, over the long term. Over the short term, it sucks. But, all of our worst fears have already come true with this. So CPI is going to be interesting tomorrow. But, it's another hurdle. We'll see what happens after that. I'm very curious to see, because I could see if there's high CPI numbers reported, everyone expecting what happened the last 2 months, but then nothing happening at all. We will see. We'll see. What else do I want to talk about? Supply shock in illiquid supply is still rising. You guys hear me talk about this all the time. That makes me think, again, why would we go down to $30,000 for Bitcoin? I know a lot of people are calling for us to go right back down to $30,000. Some idiots are calling for us to go to $20,000. And I'm not thinking of anyone in particular when I say that. I have not watched any of his videos. Do not tell him that I ripped on him. I have no idea what he is thinking. Okay, none at all. All right, so, but I do know that there are people calling for Bitcoin to go to the 20s. I think that's nonsense. And if I were to be on board with them, what I would need to see is a lot of the illiquid supply become liquid. And that's not happening. We are building strength right now. Does that mean that we're done going to the 30s? Somebody asked me on my Twitter account if I thought we were going to go lower. And I said, yeah, I think we're going to go to the upper 30s. And there we went. Does that mean that we're done in the 30s? Not necessarily, no. But there's got to be a point where you look at this and compare it with May. You see that huge dump in illiquid supply in May. There's got to be a point where it's like, okay, we don't see this huge dump happening right now. That means that the price shouldn't go as low. So what has caused us to go from $69,000 to $40,000 to $39,600? It was definitely a capitulation of short-term holders. It was the disillusionment that came with not getting our Lambos now. With the end of the year, historically, end of every 4 years has been a big deal, and this time it wasn't. Okay, we've got to get beyond that. And now with fear getting as low as 10 on the fear greed index, in general, I am much more of a buyer right now than I am of a seller. But moving on, there's a big concern here, and that is open interest. But it's just one of these things. This could go in either direction. When open interest is high, there could be a massive short squeeze, or when open interest is high, it could be a massive long squeeze. And right now, open interest is, I don't get it. Aside from it's got to be most of the smooth brain people shorting right now, but I don't understand why open interest would be so high. I have no interest in open interest. I almost pulled a BitBoy Crypto there. BitBoy Crypto tweeted something. Are you interested in Bitcoin? When he saw an article that said open interest reaches all-time highs, and he got hammered for that. But anyway, open interest leverage is super high right now, and that's probably going to equate to something. What does that mean? Does that mean a wick down to the 30s? That doesn't make sense to me, but you never know. It doesn't make sense to me. If anything, that I would think, given what I said earlier about how it's pretty much air between $43,000 and $45,500, that any kind of push to the upside would cause a series of liquidations to happen, as Bitcoin goes very quickly from 43 to $45,500 and higher than that. It doesn't have to stop at $45,500, but you guys know I'm more bullish than I am bearish. That generally, given how high open interest is right now, would be my lean as to where I think things are going, and the timing we'll see. It takes time to play itself out. It's not going to happen tomorrow. I mean, it might happen tomorrow, but it's not guaranteed to happen tomorrow. So we'll see. But something is going to happen. Something dramatic, I think. It's most likely probability. Let's talk in terms of probability. Something dramatic is most likely going to happen. Last thing I want to talk about, don't have a ton to talk about. Still trying to recover from this. I did, even though this is I'm probably going to look back at this as not a great move, not a good move at all, but I haven't been comfortable with my exposure to Ethereum. So I sold something like 20% of my Ethereum. Not a panic sell. It was another thing. I'm tracking Glassnode every day, and I'm seeing this trend of transfers to exchanges for Ethereum, and that could just be a blip. But one thing I've come to realize is I only have conviction with Bitcoin. I've talked about how I have conviction with Bitcoin and Ethereum, but there's so many Ethereum killers out there. I have strong beliefs about Ethereum. I believe that Ethereum is going to be worth 5 figures. I don't think Ethereum is going to die. I think one day Ethereum could be worth 6 figures. But at the moment, given how much of my portfolio is ETH, I decided to pull some off the table because of this trend. And this is the trend I was looking for in Bitcoin, which is firming my conviction, because I'm not seeing the same thing happening with Bitcoin, but the trend of ETH continuing to be transferred to exchanges in order to sell. Now, on this chart, that doesn't look like a big deal, and I want to be mindful of that. I don't want to scare you out of your ETH positions. And full disclosure, Ethereum is my biggest holding still, and it probably will remain as my biggest holding. But in context, this is what I'm selling into. It's not a big jump here. We've seen plenty of jumps like that, and I expect the trend to continue to go down for the amount of Ethereum on exchanges to decrease over time. But I just wanted to de-risk a little bit, given things that I'm seeing. Average, I sold a little at 3,800, sold a little at 3,200. I don't think I sold any less than that. So I might even end up buying back in, especially, some people are calling for lower 2000s for Ethereum. If it gets down there, I will probably not de-risk. I will do the opposite of de-risking at that point. So anyway, that is all I have for today. I am going to do an interview this afternoon with Many Worlds, a cryptocurrency, a metaverse project that is attempting to connect all metaverses. I'm real excited about it. And so stay tuned for that. And that will be later today. But otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day. And I will most certainly be seeing you in another video. Peace.